Welcome my friends. So this over here could be the most powerful mini PC I have tested this year. This is the Minisforum HX90G mini PC. And the interesting thing is that even though this is a laptop CPU, it's like one of the best ones out there, it also has a dedicated GPU inside this mini PC, which is a rare thing. Usually we see a CPU and then maybe integrated graphics, but here we have a dGPU as well, the Radeon 6600M. So let's have a look how much power does this pack and what's inside.
Looking for a cheap way to license your Windows? Check out HooKeys through the links in the video description. Make sure to use the code TN20 to get a 30% off. Paste the license to the activation settings and you're all done. This license is for Windows 10, but you can upgrade it to Windows 11 for free. They also offer Microsoft Office 19 license. Use the same code TN20 to get a 30% off. Check out HooKeys.com in the video description below.
So if you look at the box, there is a few different versions of this that you can get, and if you want to see the unboxing of this, it's actually in the box set episode 3 where we unboxed this a little bit. But basically you can get this up to 32 gigabytes of SSD and Radeon 6600M, and I think like the CPU and GPU are all the same. By the way, I do think there is the 6900HX version coming out as well with a bit of a different GPU as well, so stay tuned for that because that's going to be interesting as well once we get hands on that one to check out. But in terms of design, I think it's very interesting because even though it does come with a stand here, you can lay it flat on the floor just like that because there is rubber kind of feet underneath there. Whereas that there is no vent on the underneath side, so all it will do is actually push air from the side or from the top if it's laid this way. As you can see, there's fans in there and it will push the air down there, and then it will come out from the top there and then from the bottom, because underneath there's a grill there as well. So we've got the latest drivers and Windows installed here, and finally we can see there is the 5900HX. We've got 8 cores and 16 threads, 16 gigs of RAM. This is 3200 megahertz DDR4. We've got one SSD, that's the 500 gigabytes one. We'll test that later how fast this is. And then we've got the RX 6600M here as well. Interestingly, there was an iGPU there as well, but for some reason it's disabled the iGPU now. I'm not sure if we can get 2 of them working as well. I'll have to look into the BIOS there later on before we do that. But what I've got here is Cinebench R23. We want to see how well does this do. So let's hit start. Okay, what's the CPU wattage there? 55.8 watts. That's quite okay. What's the clocks there? 4.2. Very quiet. As you can see, we've got thermal headroom, loads of thermal headroom, running about 53 watts there. Honestly, like from this distance, I can't hear it being on. Let's see if it pushes that wattage all the way through. Looks like it does carry that same power through all the way. 66.9 degrees. And my ambient here is 25.2 degrees right now. It's quite warm in this room. And we've got 13,446 points. That's quite amazing for just a small PC like that. And I'm just looking at some of the benchmarks archive. The M1 Max from Apple, the 10-core CPU, is actually 12,000 something points, which is very interesting. 12,300 points. So that's quite a bit better, but I'm hoping that there's some kind of switch on the BIOS that we can enable PBO and pull much more power through, because there's so much more thermal headroom. Look, we've hit 72 degrees. That's like nothing right now. So then here on the actual Firmark, we can see 2 GPUs there. And we can see GPU 1 is being utilized here. That's the 6600M Radeon GPU. So if we go down here, and then we can see what's going on in here. So that GPU is pulling right now 74.8 watts. Now the second fan has come on as well, the bottom fan. Okay, looks like we crashed there. I'm gonna do that again to see if that actually happens again. All right, so this has run now about 13 minutes, as you can see, 13 and a half minutes. And the temperature have very slowly increased, and I think we have pretty much plateaued here. Temperature right now is 73 degrees, and it doesn't look like it's crashing any moment. So the GPU here, it's not very good for hardware monitor. For this one here, it shows 73 degrees, something like that. The voltage regulator though there is 101 degrees, which is interesting. I mean, to be honest, for a small PC like that, push 100 watts through 73 degrees, still fairly quiet. So I'm quite happy with the GPU performance there. By the way, the interesting thing is the GPU does have 8 gigabytes dedicated memory there as well. So very, very interesting there. And as you can see, the temperatures are dropping not as fast as I would think. And to be honest, I think the temperatures would be better in a form like that, because this design here, how it just pushes it out from the bottom, right now, what it does is the air will come in through there and it will fire the temperatures underneath here. It kind of like glows back as well. So it's not like a clear way out of the hot air. So the hot air kind of stays on the bottom there. We'll see inside there, but I think the GPU is like on the lower side here, because that's like a GPU fan there. I can see that the CPU fan is still running, but the GPU fan now stopped because the GPU temperatures have gone further down. So that's interesting. I did do the NVMe benchmark there as well, which is 2485 read speeds and write speeds, 1966. So it's quite okay speeds there, NVMe speeds, like PCIe Gen speeds and like average Gen 3 speeds, but the slot should be a PCIe Gen 4 speed. So we're going to pop one in later on and check the speeds then for the second test there. But now let's go see if we can get into the BIOS. In the BIOS we are. Let's find if there's any power management settings there. So it looks like there is no PBO on the BIOS. Looks like maybe the motherboard doesn't have as good of a power delivery, which is interesting, but we'll have a look if we can do something with the Ryzen Master. I'm not sure if it's supported on this CPU, but let's have a look. Unsupported processor. So AMD doesn't allow you to unlock that, and this is just done by the processor. So I'm slightly disappointed that they don't allow more power through the CPU, because it could. I know we found it in the other mini PC. What was it called again now? It's this one, Morfine S500 Plus. That one pulled much more power. Do you remember this one, the Morfine? In terms of CPU power, so we know that we're like faster than M1 Max roughly in the CPU power alone, which is very, very impressive. It's slightly lower than the 5800X desktop size processor. Obviously, we're pulling like less than half the power that the 5800X, but it's quite impressive still. Interesting, the power brick can deliver much more power as well, because it's 240 watts. So the GPU pulled 100 and the CPU around 50 or something like that. So there's extra 100 watts of power that we could be pulling through. But let's open this guy up and let's see what's the inside like. So we have to pull these rubber kind of feet off first. 4 screws here. So what can we see here? There's a RAM here, which is very easily upgradable, as you can see. We've got ADATA RAM here, 8 gigabytes, 3200. CL22. Then we've got the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip on this side. Very nice as well. And then we've got the NVMe here. So that's clever actually. They've got one screw that puts the SM.2 and also holds the actual Wi-Fi antenna there as well. So let's see what NVMe this is. No idea what that is. But it's got a proper heatsink on, which is very, very good. Actually, this is not a proper heatsink. It's by rubber. So these are like rubber bands around it, and that holds it there. It holds the thermal pad there, and then this kind of little piece of metal on top of it, which, you know, is not the most solid option there, but actually I do like it. Here's a few reasons why. Because it's very easy to remove if you want to remove it. It's good enough to cool it down, and that's what matters. So I've got to give some actual bonus points for this for figuring out the method. So if you want to use it somewhere else or that, then that's interesting. I'm going to actually pop it into the other slot, so I would know if the other slot speeds now, if what we're going to get are slower than what we got before, then we'll know there's something wrong with the second slot. But also I'm gonna put a fire CUDA here, Seagate Fire CUDA 530 into this slot here. So that's a very high-end Gen 4 NVMe drive. But while we are here, I want to look to the other side. I want to get this out and see what's on the other side, and let's have a look at the cooling solution. Okay, there we go. That's the motherboard on the other side. As you can see, we've got this ribbon cable to connect to the front panel. That's the front panel switch. We've got USB-C port, Type A, and audio and jack, so you've got another little PCB there. And then the fans go inside there. So the CPU fan is the top fan here, and then this is the GPU fan, as you can see here. So basically the other side of the motherboard here is complete heatsink. So we've got 6 heat pipes. So 3 for the GPU, which I think is this side, and then 3 for the CPU, which are on that side. And looks like this thermal performance is actually quite good. So you can easily unconnect that, and then now we have just this here. Interestingly, if you look at these fans, they're plugged in on the side here, and this is just a normal standard PWM connector, and then there's another one here, so they're both there. And I can see another connector here that's completely free, so we could have another system fan in here if you wanted to. And the only thing holding this heatsink down looks like is on this side. So while we're at it, let's undo this as well, and let's see the thermal paste performance. Ooh, that was very loose here. So this wasn't screwed in very well at all. Or the same in here. Very, very loose screw. That's a little bit better, but still not as tight as I would expect a heatsink to be. They're all fairly loose screws here. Yeah, honestly, not even threaded all the way. So slightly loose. Let's see what we can see underneath on the other side. I think they've used liquid metal on this, because I can see some kind of like a shiny metal thing on the other side. So it doesn't want to peel off because it's liquid metal. I don't want to ruin that anyway. So I'm just going to leave that one there because I don't have liquid metal here. So I guess you should as well. I didn't know they used liquid metal. Maybe that's why we've got such good thermal performance there as well. So it's quite a nice engineering, as you can see. Just all the other side, like a big heatsink, 6 heat pipes. I think this is going to work quite well. Okay, that's back. Let's put this PC back together. Honestly, the engineering of these small mini PCs is always amazing. So the interesting thing is there's like a cover here that protects it, right? And then you've got these screw holes in here that will be for the legs of the panel that went over there. But then interestingly, this cover is just literally to like screw it into something, so that will hold it onto this one and the other PC. You can't actually install any 2.5 SSDs or so on. It's nice to have a second M.2 slot, which is nice. But if you remember the Morphine PC, you could have 2 there, 2 M.2s and actual 2.5-inch SSD as well, which was much nicer. So I'm not actually gonna plug any of this in together. I want to see what the secondary M.2 SSD speeds there are. I'll leave a bit of a gap underneath there so it has a bit of room to breathe. So yeah, as you can see straight away, the Fire CUDA has been picked up there. Secondary drive there. So this is D. Let's have a look if we've got, what's the speed there like. Sorry, my bad. I'm just looking at the specs there online. The 5900HX actually supports only PCIe Gen 3. So both of those slots are Gen 3 compatible only. And that's why we're getting these speeds here, which is like absolutely maximum of the Gen 3 speeds there. Ooh, SSD is getting quite warm there. So both of the slots are Gen 3. No point in putting Gen 4 drive in there, just so you know. So I'm going to put some creative benchmarks in the end here, just so you can, you know, compare it to your system. Or if you're wondering how well does this perform there in creative applications, I'm going to leave it there. But generally, what is the conclusion of this PC? I think this is interesting. It's the first time I'm seeing like that small PC with an actual dedicated GPU inside the PCB as well. You know, like the CPU and GPU both in there with the RAM. Very easy access access to the upgradability M.2 slots and the RAM and the Wi-Fi card as well, which is nice. But for creatives perspective, you've seen the benchmarks now. I think the NVIDIA card would be much better. Obviously, this is meant for gamers really and more gamers focused. Interesting, there is 4 display outputs on the sides there, which is interesting. You've got 3 USB 3 ports in the back and then 1 in the front. The Type-C here in the front, let's test that here now as well. I know that there is capable of speeds of up to 2.6 gigabytes per second, something like that. Interesting, it's 373 megabytes per second, which means that it's only 5 gigabit USB-C port there. So nothing amazing. So not like that fast connectivity either. It's meant for gaming and so on. So I do wish there was a bit more power push through, because there is a headroom for the CPU. It could easily be cooled down much faster. It is very quiet, so that's the good side. We've got lots of graphics outputs if you do need that or something like that. So overall, I think this PC is very cool. I'd love to see the next version of this, you know, perhaps maybe some NVIDIA GPUs inside as well. That will be interesting for creators. But right now, I do still think this has got a lot of future and a lot of people will be interested in this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to pick this up, I'm going to leave it in the description below. As always, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.